And, one of the things we talk a lot about at Next Health is not just overall wellness and optimizing your health around your body, but also your mind. Of course, we all know the brain is very intimately connected to all of our organ systems. And if we're not taking care of our brain and our mind, we're definitely not doing our body any good. They're so interconnected and so interrelated. And one of the biggest aspects of taking care of your mind and your brain, which totally affects the brain-heart connection, the brain-gut connection, all these connections our brain has, is our spirit and on our entire outlook on life in general. In fact, I would say it's probably one of the most important things about taking care of your brain, besides, of course, preventing like brain injuries, So we have an expert in that particular topic today. Kute Blackson is an incredibly well-known, I would say, motivational speaker or just speaker in general on topics of mental and spiritual optimization and your health around your mind and your spirit. So, Kevin, you know Kute a little bit better as well. Maybe you could talk a little bit about him. This is Kevin Peak here. For those of you who are not watching but are listening, he's the president and co-founder of Next Health.
Absolutely. Kute is we've gotten to know each other, and we're very excited to have you on the podcast today. He's the author of You Are the One, A Bold Adventure in Finding Purpose, Discovering the Real You, and Loving Fully. I know about a year ago in Next Health, I saw this guy come in who was talking to our staff, and he was just radiating with confidence and charisma, and he was speaking with such passion that I asked one of the other team members, I'm like, who is this guy? And they're like, oh, that's that motivational speaker, Kute. He wrote that book, You Are the One. And, since then, we've got to know Kute, and, his journey is so incredible. Personally, I'm really excited for this podcast, just to have the opportunity to dive deeper with you on what your journey, your mission, your purpose, and then as Dr. Shah said, see how this ties into health optimization and longevity. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, what do you call yourself? What is your title? Are you a motivational speaker? Are you a health coach? What is it?
I would say I'm definitely motivational in some way, but I think motivation just by itself, well, the sort of typical pump up, rah, 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 doesn't really last. It lasts all of, a few seconds. So my intention is to not necessarily motivate people. My intention is I'm a transformational teacher, transformational coach, transformational guy. In fact, I'm not even a coach. I uncoach people, I untrain people, I uncondition people, because I really believe that, essentially who we are, we're already whole, perfect, and complete. And so I think when we're born as children, if you look at a child, the child will jump on a table and sing and dance. The child is in touch with their wholeness, with their essence. You look into a child's eyes, they are beaming with light. I mean, what the hell happens by the time we get to 50, 60, 40 years old? There's darkness, we're tired, our chi is, gone. We've lost touch with our true essential nature, that brightness, that magnificence. And so a child will jump on a table and sing and scream. It doesn't care if it's fat, or the child doesn't care if it's not Bruno Mars. A child is in touch with their true wholeness and their health. And what happens is we're born as children, we're born into this planet, this whole beings. And then we meet our parents, and our parents, they're just doing the best that they can do based on their life and their childhood and their conditioning and their programming. And, we're born into a certain environment. Maybe there's pain, maybe there's trauma, maybe there's divorce, maybe there's abandonment, maybe our parents just weren't around for some reason. So we felt some emotional neglect. And so as children, two things happen. I think the first thing is we start learning all sorts of mechanisms and strategies and survival mechanisms to disconnect, shut down, and kind of survive and find ways to deal with our environment and our situation, and maybe, dad wasn't around, and so that was painful, or we were abandoned and that was painful. So we start learning all sorts of ways to shut down, not feel the pain, the hurt, the abandonment feeling. And so we start disconnecting from parts of ourselves in order to not feel that pain. And then and the challenge is the pain doesn't really go anywhere. We start stuffing this pain down inside of us, and layers and layers and layers of unfelt, suppressed feeling and emotion start building up. And I think slowly, unconsciously, we start disconnecting from our light. Our true light, our true energy starts getting hidden underneath all these suppressed feelings and emotions, and layer upon layer upon layer. We lose ourselves, and then we start going out into the world, and we start learning all sorts of ways and strategies to this sense of who do I need to be in order to get love and be approved. And maybe we were loud and we were funny and we were free, and our dad said, shut up, be quiet, children aren't supposed to be heard, they just be, say nothing, or boys don't cry. So we start shutting down, and we start developing all sorts of roles and strategies and personas and masks, the sense of who do I need to be in order to be loved by my parents? Who do I need to be in order to fit in, be loved, be enough, be validated, be normal, feel the connection. And so we develop these roles and personas thinking this is who we are. And so we shut down our emotions and our feelings, and then develop these roles and personas. And before you know it, we're kind of locked into this identity, this sense of, oh, this is who I am. I'm just a nice guy. I'm just responsible. I'm just, I learned as a young boy to grow up to be the sort of perfect one, the perfect kid, the perfect child, the over-responsible one, the caretaker. And so we start locking into an identification of these roles and personas that we think this is who we are. But really what I do is I get people to question, is who you are who you really are, or is it simply who you've been conditioned to be? And I think the degree to which we're conditioned without even knowing is we're unconscious, and the degree to which we're conditioned, we're not free. And so many times I think our true source of energy, vitality, and aliveness gets trapped, gets suppressed, gets locked, gets hidden underneath all these layers that we have built up since childhood. So I really help people become free, and you could say first becoming conscious of our conditioning, and then I help people kind of deal with it and process it and face it and clear it and heal it. And I think when we're able to become aware and free ourselves from our conditioning, the layers of our conditioning that we all have, all of us have developed layers of conditioning out of survival that worked for us when we were age 5 and age 10 and age 15. But eventually I think we get to the point where some of those ways of being get in the way of our free expression. And so I think what I found is the more, you could say, unresolved shit, unresolved emotion, unresolved stuff, pain, trauma, hurt, guilt, shame that we're carrying, and some of us, we've suppressed it so deep we don't even know that we're carrying this stuff, and we're just carrying it. It's inside of us energetically, it's inside of our bodies, and it's causing kind of dis-ease inside of us, and we're not even aware. And so I think the more of this stuff we're carrying, the less our energy flows. The heavier we are, the less we have access to our own kind of flow of energy. So I help people become aware, become conscious. And so for me, it's an unconditioning process that I take people through, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in small groups, or whether it's in large groups. And I think, awareness is the first key.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, I'm certainly not one of these people who describe, but I do have some friends that say they had the perfect childhood, right?
Right.
Everything was fine. They grew up in, they went to private school, and their parents worked and whatever. Everything was great. They went on vacations once every few months. Do you think even those people have something to learn about repressed emotions and kind of coming out of their, like what you were saying, kind of going through your process? I mean, do you think it's universal?
I think if you're in a human body,
yeah,
if you're a
that's
human
what I feel.
being,
I totally agree with you.
There's always something, and I think the spectrum is, right. Someone maybe they face pain, trauma, hurt, they're abused, beaten, their father left them when they were 5. Right. They were told that you're nothing and you're worthless, and there's mental abuse. So I think we all think that's an extreme. Right. And another sort of extreme on the other end might be someone that says, no, I had a great childhood. But it might have been as simple as your parents they weren't emotionally available.
Right.
And sometimes feeling that sort of lack of emotional connection can be painful. And because we don't really know what it is and it's not obvious, it can affect us in ways that we're not even conscious of. Right. And so sometimes when it's more subtle like that, or it's not as intense, it can be even more challenging because we start adapting, thinking it's normal, thinking that's all we know. And so we start learning all sorts of ways to kind of deal with that lack of emotional connection. Right. And we make it okay, and we don't even know. So maybe we start shutting down a part of our hearts. Maybe we start numbing ourselves, and it's not a big deal. but it still has an impact. I'll give you two examples. I had a client who, she had loving parents. Her parents were amazing. She knew that they loved her, which made it even more challenging to identify. But they were working a lot, like many of our parents, working because they loved her and they wanted to give her the best life. They didn't want her to have the life that they had and struggle. So they were working. And so she was a latchkey kid, and she came home and they weren't around. But she knew they loved her. And when they were there, they were there. But she didn't have anyone what she realized was she didn't have anyone to rely on. There was a sense of a holding space and a sense of kind of emotional safety that as a child, I think we need, that she didn't have. So she would come home and she had to open the door, cook her own food, take care of herself, be there, basically be independent. So unconsciously she learned, I can't really depend on anyone. And I think as children, we need to be able to feel that safety, that spaciousness, that we can just let go, that we're being held, And so she didn't have that emotional space. It wasn't anything traumatic or huge, but unconsciously she made up, there's no one there for me. I have to take care of myself. So she became the independent one. She became, the one that took care of herself. I have to be there for myself. And so she went through her entire life being the ultra independent. And there was always a part of her heart that wasn't really open, that wasn't really available, that wasn't really vulnerable, because she couldn't be. She had to hold it together all the time. And how that played out in her life was she came to me because she kept asking, I don't understand why I'm not attracting any men in my life. I don't understand it. And she didn't realize how there was a subtle part of her heart that was actually closed, that wasn't available, because to love, to be in relationship, to fall in love, to let another person in is a vulnerable thing. And so as a child, she didn't have that, reference point. I had another client who came to me. His wife was my client. And she was like the most rambunctious, outgoing, intense, gregarious woman. And he came to me because he was in a place in his life where he felt, I have these visions and I have this dream and I have this thing I want to accomplish. I don't understand why I'm not achieving my vision and my dream. And he just found he was procrastinating. He wasn't putting himself out there. And he came to me and he says, Kute, I'm just a shy person. I'm just shy. And I'm just a person who I like being in the background. My wife is the front person. I'm just shy. And that was his identity. Right. That's how he perceived himself. And I looked at him and I said, that is total BS. You have been lying your entire life, that you've been living an act. And he was totally shocked. And I started to take him through a deeper dive process, and I started to ask him some questions. And as we started exploring, he started to become aware. And in my coaching with him, 24 hours later, he came to me with tears in his eyes. Here's a 55-year-old guy. He says, Kute, I haven't cried since I was age 5. You asked some questions. You stirred some things inside of me. I haven't looked at myself. I thought everything was fine in my childhood, but I'm going to get a little deep for a moment. But he came to me and he said, the last 24 hours I've been crying because I finally realized why I have been the way I have been. I realized I've been hiding my whole life. Even though I thought I was shy and I thought I was, I like helping people. I like, being the supporter. But I realized why I've been doing it. He said, when I was 5, I totally forgot. But I just remembered when I was 5, I was molested by my uncle. He goes, I didn't even remember this until 24 hours ago. I somehow suppressed this memory so deep that I totally forgot. And he goes, everything about my entire life started to make sense. I said, tell me more. What he realized was when he was 5, he was this sort of bright being. He was loud and free and magnificent and, just full of light and energy. And something happened that really should not have happened. His innocence was taken advantage of. So unconsciously, he made up, wow, if I'm seen, if people see me, if I'm out there, then it's dangerous. So in order to function and survive, I have to hide. And if you can't see me and I'm in the background And so he became shy, and he became the supporter, married a wife who was always out there so he could hide. It wasn't conscious. None of this was conscious. He was living unconsciously, and his conditioning was running his life. And so what he made up as a 5-year-old was, if you can't see me, then you can't hurt me. And his entire life, without being aware, had been a reaction, to a wound. And so I think we have to become conscious, And so I really like to ask people, is who you are who you really are? Or is it simply who you've been conditioned to be? Much of the time, we're living out our programming. We're living out our parental stuff. We're living out our generational patterns without even being aware.
Sure.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I think on whatever level, as human beings, I think we're born into this, life. We're souls. I believe we're souls, and we're born into this human body, and we have this experience. And I think we are here ultimately as human beings to learn, grow, and evolve. To me, it's not about being perfect. It's not about achieving perfection. I don't even think it's about being enlightened. I think our true essence, our souls, our true nature is all of us already enlightened. And so I think we're born into this human experience to have a human experience. And I think the whole purpose of life and the whole goal of life is to grow and evolve, and how we grow and evolve is through experiences, and so as children we all have experiences in which we have to grow and evolve through. Yeah.
It seems it's like the point is being enlightened, and if we're born enlightened, but then it's the human journey that conditions us, but we have to go on the journey.
Yes.
So it's almost like it's a puzzle to unwind all of that and get back to that point of being enlightened and in that pure state.
Yeah, I think we're already enlightened. I think we're actually already healthy. I think I actually believe our natural state is health.
Yeah.
Our natural innate state is health. And I see a lot of people who are chasing health, thinking health is out there in a pill, in a product, and nothing wrong. I mean, I do all of the next health stuff. I love it. The stem cells, this, that, NAD. I'm a believer, I'm in cryotherapy. I'm on the red bed. Love it. But I see a lot of people chasing health like it's something out there without realizing, wait a second, health is my natural state of being. And if anything, because of my conditioning, pain, trauma, hurt, illusions, stories, I've just lost touch with that. And so I think health is really the process of not adding more stuff externally to ourselves, but removing the conscious, mental, emotional, and physical blockages that prevent the natural chi, the natural energy, the natural innate intelligence from flowing. I think that there is an innate intelligence that is already inside of us. Some people call it chi, some people call it energy, some people call it consciousness, some people call it God, call it whatever you want. I don't really care whatever you call it, but it is unarguable that something is living and breathing you and I. The same intelligence that perhaps is functioning the sun, the star, the moon, 7 billion people. It is happening. It's digesting our food. This intelligence is, we're not sitting here going, digest. It's happening, right? In spite of us. How is it that we eat a chicken or we eat a fish or we eat a piece of kale and our hand doesn't become a kale?
Right.
Our hand doesn't become a chicken. Your ear doesn't become a beef, a grass-fed beef. There's an innate intelligence that takes all of these, nutrients and digests. There is something that's happening that's enabling us to see. So for me, there is an innate intelligence that I think that we have forgotten, we have lost touch with, that has just kind of gotten covered up, and we've gotten identified into the illusion that we are just this limited set of conditioning, pain, trauma, and stories. And so I think when we realize that we are this innate intelligence, to me, real health is about just removing the illusions and the blockages. And I think when we can do that, then the innate intelligence inside of us, I believe, knows how to bring us back into harmony, how to bring us back into health. I mean, look,
It's automatic almost.
it's automatic.
Right.
If you cut your finger, I don't care if you're Pablo Escobar, El Chapo, Donald Trump, Mother Teresa, or Dr. Shah. The same intelligence is going to heal this if we create the conditions. And I think what we have to do is not sort of heal ourselves, but really create the conditions for this innate intelligence to work. So what I do in my work is create the conditions in my seminars, in my events. But I think one of the most important things we can do as human beings, one of the most important ingredients in terms of the conditions is the space of compassion and loving. I think when we're able to bring a sense of compassion and loving. And to me, healing is applying the application of love to those parts of ourselves that are in pain, to those parts of ourselves that are hurting, to those parts of ourselves that have felt wounded or trauma. And I think when we're able to hold ourselves with compassion and with loving, then I think that activates the innate intelligence inside of us. There's an innate intelligence in the body. I think there's also an innate intelligence inside of our beingness, inside of our psyches, that know how to bring us back into harmony, And so I think health is our natural state of being. Really. Yeah.
Can you? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Creating the conditions to bring ourselves into that natural state of harmony, to allow our, whether it be our bodies or our brains, to heal itself. You said putting yourself in a condition of loving and compassion, right?
I think so often we are so judgmental of ourselves.
Right.
We maybe as children, we didn't feel the direct experience of being loved, just unconditionally. We've been trained to experience love as conditional if you do this, then I'll love you. If you're a certain way, then I'm going to love you. If you get A's, then I'm going to love you. If you get B's, I'll kind of love you. If you get C's, I'm not going to love you. You go to this school. If you become a doctor, if you become a priest, if you become this, if you make this amount of money, then you're going to be okay. And so we start navigating this relationship. And so often with this relationship with our parents, we start experiencing love as conditional. And as a result, we start transferring that relationship to ourselves. And so that creates this disconnect. And so I think as we can start shifting that and beginning to really give ourselves that unconditional loving, the unconditional loving just for being alive, just for being here. For me, that loving is the space. Many times I have seen that we are trying to heal ourselves, trying to better ourselves out of self-hate and judgment. Even in health, even in personal growth. I hate my body, and so if I can take this pill, if I can do this thing, if I can do this thing, if I can get my body to this shape, then I'm going to finally be enough, and then I will be lovable, and the entire process of health becomes counterproductive. And so I tell people, you might achieve that perfect body and that perfect face and that perfect idea of what you think you need to be in order to be lovable, but not only will the process be miserable, but even when you achieve it, it will never be enough. It will never be enough until we realize that no condition outside of ourselves determines our worth and our value. And so the realization, the acceptance, the surrender, the acknowledgement to who and what we are, which is manifestation of the divine. We are works of art. And so that realization of, I am enough. I've always been enough. Nothing I haven't done or will do is going to make me more or less enough. Just being me is enough. And so that, I think, realization opens up a space to begin loving ourselves just as we are and meeting ourselves, with compassion, meeting ourselves with kindness, meeting ourselves with an unconditionality. I think that's where the healing happens, when we can meet ourselves. I was telling someone the other day, because they were saying, well, I just don't love my body. I don't love my body. And if it was just, 20 pounds lighter, then I would love it. If it just looked this way. And I said, okay, if you can't love your body, at least let's come into acceptance that you can't love your body. Just let's accept that you're not there. And let's just be in relationship with that. But let's at least then get into relationship with what your body really is. What is your body? And feel your body. I mean, this body is an amazing, I don't know about you, but to me, it's a miracle. How often do we really sit with the reality of what this is? Okay, maybe it doesn't look how we would like it to look, and it's not quite the way we would want it to be, but trillions and trillions of processes are happening inside of this body. If we really sit with the reality of this mechanism, trillions of cells, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the eyes, and just actually get into relationship with what is going on inside of us, it is amazing. And I think if many times we're actually not present with it because we're so busy trying to change it. We're so busy trying to get it to be something else versus being with it as it is. And I think when we're actually being with it as it is, we can actually feel what is happening. And so for me, when I was able to actually feel what is happening inside of this thing, how could a level of compassion or appreciation not open up in relationship to this body? And I think that acknowledgement leads to a sense of appreciation, which then can lead to a sense of compassion, which then can lead to a sense of, an opening of loving, because it is the vessel that is holding, that is functioning, that is holding our souls, our spirits, and it's amazing, but we often don't think about it. And so I think that space of loving, to meet ourselves with loving, to meet ourselves with compassion, to meet ourselves with kindness, I think is the key. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I feel like you hit the nail on the head with that. And it's something that we see so often in Next Health, and probably an area that I feel like is the biggest area that we need more attention to. And because there is a pill for everything. We're having so many medical advancements these days, and so many people come in, like you said, in spite of their body, that they're wanting to accomplish something, and they think that they can harness these advancements that are now available with science, medicine, technology to make an improvement, but it's all external.
Yes,
and there's nothing internal that's happening.
Yeah.
And you have to start there. I mean, if we're not able to fix the internal, the mental well-being, which is the area that I think there's a huge challenge these days, because everyone's so focused on social media and the outside appearance, what other people are thinking, and everyone's looking outward rather than inwards.
Yeah.
And no matter where they get, they're still not content. There's still somewhere more that they have to go, someone who's better, someone who's doing something else, and they're always comparing rather than just being present with themselves. So it's it's interesting for us, because as we have medical facilities, that how do we incorporate this? It's mindfulness and mental health is so much of it's a big part of what we want to do, but it's tricky to figure out how to incorporate it. I mean, you're someone who embodies this.
Yeah, that's all I do.
How do we bottle this and give it to people? I mean, how
it's tricky. It's tricky. You see, I don't have an issue because I use all of your stuff. I mean, I believe in it, but I think the ultimate reality is you won't find it out there. But I think the pills and the this and the NAD, all of this stuff, I love it as not as a way to, for me, it's all in our relationship with it. That's the key. It's our relationship with it that determines our experience of it and our experience of ourselves. And I think nothing outside of yourself is going to necessarily make you sustainably feel good enough if you're not feeling that within yourself. So for me, my relationship with health is less about trying to fit some ideal and more about starting from the recognition that this body is a temple. It's a temple that houses my soul. Because if I'm a soul, that's the foundation. If I'm a soul, if I'm a spirit, if I'm energy, and this body is simply the vehicle for the expression of my soul in this lifetime, the better this vehicle can function, the more fluidity and flexibility that my soul is going to be able to express in this physical world in this lifetime. And so my relationship with it is more about how much freedom am I able to experience through this physical body so that my soul can manifest its fullest potential through this body as this vehicle in this lifetime. And so it becomes more about that possibility, versus if my body's a certain way, then I'm going to be enough. I think we have to start with, I'm already enough, knowing that I'm already enough. And that has to be a foundation. And I'm not saying Next Health, but I see a lot of health companies selling this idea, playing on you're not enough, and we're going to sell you this thing to be enough. And I think that's very dangerous, and that does a disservice. And I think if you can start from the reality, you're enough, and empower people with that as a foundation, then the physical, the products and everything becomes just a beautiful way to optimize and enhance the soul's and spirit's expression so that you can fulfill your highest potentiality in this lifetime as a human being and ultimately transcend the physical. Because that's where the source of real energy is, and that's where it's at. And so, I love experimenting with different things as a way to see what is this body capable of, and what is my spirit capable of? What is our spirit capable of through this body? And once I reach the limits of what my body is capable of, can I expand that bandwidth? And am I just this body? Is there more than this body? Am I just this body? And so for me, I think that's the relationship. We have to start with that foundation of who we are. Who we are is not just this body. Who we are is energy. What we are is consciousness. What we are is whatever label, energy, consciousness, chi, it's been around for thousands of years. I think when we can start with that foundation, then the body becomes, we shift our relationship with the body. I believe that ultimately we are not just this body. At the end of the day, no matter how many green drinks we drink, no matter how many cryo sessions I do, no matter how many red beds I do, and I love them, no matter how many stem cells, this body is going to die. Jesus died. Buddha died, Muktananda died, Mother Teresa. This body is gonna, it's gonna go at some point. Okay, maybe 200 years, maybe 180 years, maybe 1,000 years, but this body is gonna die, and it's okay, And so I think when we can accept that, I actually think, for me, one of the keys to freeing up more energy was actually the acceptance of the limitations of this body. When I really actually accepted, this body is going to die. This body is going to die, and it's okay, and it's okay, and totally made peace with the fact this body is going to die. Then the question became, if it's going to die, then how do I actually want to live? And the acceptance of the fact that this physical body will die freed me up to, I don't know, be more bold, be more energetic, access more urgency, more passion for living life. And so I back to your question, I do think it's tricky, being in the health, but I think when you start with that foundation, you are souls. You are whole, perfect, and complete. Health is your natural state. And all we're doing is removing blockages so that the natural health can flow. I think that's the foundation. Yeah,
that's such an incredible analogy in the way you put it. I mean, I think in everyone's DNA, most people's DNA, we have the perfect blueprint on how to be healthy, both in our mind and in our bodies. We just have to remove the blockages and create the conditions around ourselves to let our body just take control and just make it happen, right?
Yes.
And I think what happens in this environment that we're in, both on a physical level and on a mental level, we surround ourselves with all these blockages, and it's really hard to get away from, I think that's one issue and I talk to patients about this stuff all the time. Like, how do I create the conditions around me to be healthy, physically, mentally, spiritually? The second thing is, just getting people to realize, like you're saying, like, I mean, it's and I want to know your process around this. How do you get people to realize that they are not their body? I mean, what you're saying is exactly right. Like, you are energy within this vessel, and this vessel is carrying your energy forward. Right. And our real job is to just be, like you said, remove the blockages, be happy with the vessel that we have, and just give it the conditions that it needs to remain in as healthy, as optimal health as it can be. But people don't realize that, because people just, they look at themselves in the mirror every day. They associate themselves with what they see, right? They associate, like, when they get hungry, they eat food. So their mind automatically thinks that I am this.
I am just this body.
I am just this body.
We have to go, I think you hit a point, we have to me, the real source of, like, super energy is we have to go beyond that I am just this body.
Right.
We are not just this body. And everything in our culture and society and media is purely conditioning us. I mean, it's a very difficult uphill struggle because everything in the West is conditioning. East is different, but in the West, we're being conditioned. You're this body, you're this body, you're this body, you're your eyes, you're your hair, you're your waist size, you're your body, and ultimately, you're not enough. But if you buy this product, if you use this thing, if you wear this thing, if you pop this pill, if you use this thing, if you look like this, then you're going to finally be enough. So everything is conditioning us to the identification that we are this body.
Right.
And so all of our total focus as human beings is simply on our body. So then we get identified and attached to this body being me. This body is who I am. This body is me. The one for me, and I'll come back. One of the first realizations happened for me maybe 17 years ago or so, when I first went to India. Shaved my head, went to India. I'm like, I'm not coming back until I have some answers for myself, until I have a direct experience for myself. And I went to India. I was there for 3 months. The first 3 days with my backpack, no idea where I was going. I ended up in a place called Varanasi. Varanasi is by the Ganges, where they have the burning bodies.
I've been there.
You've been there, right? And they called it the holiest city in the world. I was like, what the hell is holy about this place? It's filthy, it's dirty.
It's a disaster.
It's a disaster. This is the unholiest city in the world. What am I doing here? And it was like midnight. I thought I was going to be killed. But I saw this smoke, one of the oldest inhabited cities in the world. And I followed this like smoky smoke that was floating through the air. And I followed it through these winding, tiny cobbled streets. And at like 1 a.m., I ended up by the Ganges. And they say, in India, they say that if you die and you're basically cremated and thrown into the Ganges in Varanasi, you don't have to take rebirth again, that it's so powerful. So I found myself all of a sudden overlooking the Ganges with like 6 to 7 bodies on wood pyres, priests going around them, saying blessings. And I saw for like 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, an entire body being burned, like this close. And there was an entire body on wood with fire and sandalwood. And I saw the entire process as they lit this body on fire. And there was the head sizzling, and the brain sizzling, and the hands crackling, and water spewing. 2.5, 3 hours, entire body was gone. And it really hit me. Am I just this body? This thing that I think of as me, like, who am I really? Am I just this body? This thing that I think of as myself. Where do I, when I say I, actually exist? When I say Kute, when I say Kevin, where do I actually exist? Oh, in here. So, in my brain. Well, so if I cut my brain open, I was looking at this body thing. If I cut my brain open, am I going to see myself just pop out and go, I'm here? Like, no, we're going to see some gray matter, the brain. So am I this gray matter? Like, so where this sense of I-ness, right? Personality. And where does it actually exist? In here. Okay, if I cut my belly open, am I going to see myself in my gut? No. So where is the source of this I? And as I started to really question, as I watched this body burning, I thought it became apparently clear. Like, oh, I'm my hands, and then because we identify with our hands and our face, and the moment there's a wrinkle, it's like, oh my God, I'm getting old. I'm not enough, because we've so identified with this body as me. It's no more than like if you got a ketchup on this shirt and you're freaked out and you were like, oh my God, I look terrible. It's like, are you this shirt? No. Am I this body? Not really. So as I watched this body burning, it became apparently clear, I can't just be this body. And if I'm not this body, then what am I? I think all suffering, or so much suffering, comes through the conditioned identification of ourselves as simply being this body, so that when any changes happen to this body, we are up, we're down, or we're suffering, or we're freaked out, because we think, I am dying. But I think that we have to go beyond the identification of ourselves as this body to something more. And so then, if I'm not this body, what am I? And where do I exist? And who am I really? And so then I started to realize that as I started to investigate this body, okay, this body is here. but something is breathing it. Right as we sit here or listen to this podcast, something is breathing this body. What is that? As I said earlier, I'm not sitting here going, it's happening. It's happening. And so when the body dies, the breath stops. But if I was just this body, if we really were just this body, then when your body dies, we could take, like let's say when you die, hopefully that's a long time from now, Kevin, when you die, we could take you to your loved ones and, your kids and your spouse and everything. You just put your dead body on the couch and say, here's Kevin. If you're the body, we could just say, here you are. Why are you crying?
Right. Mount me, put me on the wall.
Why are you crying? Here he is. But something is no longer animating this body. And so what I started to do was actually through the body, I think the body is a blessing, through the body, investigate and get into relationship with what is functioning this. What is breathing this? There's something. There's something that is breathing it. There's something that is functioning it. There's something that is looking out of these eyes. Something. And I think that's when something shifted for me, is the realization that there is an energy. There isn't I think it's beyond label. It's beyond, it's beyond identification. It's beyond words. But there is unquestionably something that is functioning us, a source of energy that is functioning us, that is beyond this body. And I think when we can access deeper levels of that, then I think we start to access deeper levels of energy, and we start going beyond the limitations of the energy of this body.
Let me ask you, Kute, in case someone's having some sort of a realization, I might be feeling like I'm having a realization now listening to this. When you say, the thought of this is not my body, and accessing, tapping into this, this truer sense and this deeper energy, what would the steps be for someone
it's not just like, this is your body, but your body is not you.
Right.
This is your body, but this body is not you. And I think, look, do you have the same body when you were 5 years old?
Technically, no.
No. In fact, 7 years ago, is your body the same as it was 7 years ago? I mean, I'm told, I'm not a doctor. You're the doctor. You're going to have to correct me. But every 7 years or some
whole new
crazy,
body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every cell in your body actually changes. So check this. I'm a layperson. Here's the doctor. He's going to correct me on anything. But every 7 years, your cells totally transform and change. Technically, you have a new body every 7 years. So every 7 years, technically, you are a different person. Your body is technically somebody different.
Right.
So we cannot just be this physical body. Because in 7 years, your physical body has totally been replaced. That means you are technically someone else. So what is it that is the same? What is it?
This thing.
Yeah, what is it? I think we have to kind of question and inquire and go inside. What is it? What is it that is the same? What is it that is looking out of those eyes? What is it that, even though this body is changing, and in 15 years this body is changing, and in 30 years, you might have some white hair in the butt. Well, maybe you won't, because you'll be doing next health stuff, But the average person, in 30, 40 years, when they're 8 years old, their body's going to be totally different than when it was 30 or 40. But what is it that's looking out of those eyes? What is it that's looking out of those eyes that is unchanging? There's something that, as we look out of those eyes, that doesn't change. But I think we're so distracted with outside stuff, with social media and outside stuff, we don't go inside. We stay on the surface of the body without really creating the space and the stillness to go inside. And I think, for me, one of the keys has been meditation,
Right.
To really just go inside and tune in and tap in and connect.
And how often do you meditate? What's your practice like?
Now I meditate maybe half an hour a day. It depends. I go through different moments of meditation, but meditation has been a a very important practice of mine. You know, there were moments when, 15 years ago when I had no money and I was broke and all I would do was meditate because it was free. I would go on dates and I'd be like, hey baby, let's meditate together. I was like, that was very romantic, but she didn't realize I didn't have any money and like it was a cheap date. So I tried to meditate about a half an hour a day, because I think meditation is the process that allows us to start removing our attention from the surface level of our physicality to go deeper, to access a deeper dimension of ourself, and so that's been a key for me.
Got it. Yeah. What other daily routines do you have?
Meditation is one, but also I will say that for me, meditation is also there. So there's a practice where I sit and meditate. Just sit, close my eyes, meditate. There's another practice where, for me, meditation is a moment-to-moment experience. So people say, on one level, people say, "Do you meditate?" I say yes. On another level, people say, "Do you meditate?" And I say, all the time, because I really believe that meditation is living moment to moment with total awareness. Right. And our ability to live moment to moment with total awareness is the ability to be present and live mindfully. And so that's something that's really important to me. And so I actually see life itself and this whole experience as a spiritual practice. I see life itself as a yoga, as a spiritual practice and an opportunity to be present. So that's something that's important. Living mindfully. I exercise every day. I mean, for me, that's something that's non-negotiable. No matter what I'm doing, I exercise, and then just taking care of the physical. Like, I'm not the body, but I am the body, and I'm not. And I think it's a paradox. Ultimately, I'm not the body, but I am the body, and the body is a vehicle. So I exercise every day. I do something functional, an hour and 50 minutes a day, cardio, light weights, combination of things. Even when I'm teaching 14, 15 hours a day, or teaching 18 hours a day, I wake up and exercise because it just gets the energy flowing, the chi flowing, makes a huge difference for me. So that's been a key. And for me, exercise has been something that's really important. I started doing it when I was like age 8, age 9. Started running. I was a chubby kid, and I wasn't naturally athletic. And I think there's a myth that people have that it should just happen, and so I wasn't naturally athletic. And for like 10 years, I was a fat kid, basically. And for basically 10 years, I never felt like exercising. There wasn't one day where I actually felt like it, but every time I would do it, it made a huge difference. So I kept doing it.
Yeah. I just was reflecting on your experience of Varanasi, watching that body burning and having that realization that you are not this body.
Yes.
I had a similar experience. I'm a surgeon, and one of the things that we do when we learn surgery is we dissect cadavers. Right. And one of the things we learn to take care of trauma patients by dissecting a cadaver, understanding the anatomy. And so brain trauma, I remember dissecting a cadaver of a brain, and it was in an anatomy lab, and it was disconnected from the person and everything. And it was just, I remember doing this exercise of working on this brain and dissecting it and just realizing, like, there is no humanity inside of this. This is just biological tissue at this point in time.
Right.
So, at that point in time, I realized that I'm not what's behind my eyeballs. That's not me, right? And it just made me had this total realization that there's so much more than what is in this physical vessel we call body. Exactly. And then another reflection I had was, you're talking about how we grew up, right? And our experiences as we grew up. I think a lot of people, they associate who they are with the experiences that they've had and the behaviors they've created because of those experiences, right? And so I think another reason I use meditation is not just to realize that I'm not this physical, biological body, but I'm also not the collection of experiences that made my behaviors, right? And so I think for people to separate themselves from those two factors and understand that their energy does not involve, that their energy is separate from their physical vessel and their experiences and their behaviors is so powerful, because then you realize you have control over all of those aspects, that you can modify those aspects to give yourself this ideal physical vessel, this behavioral patterns that you feel happy with, you know? And I think meditation is a key to that, because it gives you that mental space, mental and physical and spiritual space to just sit in that for a little while and understand that. So I love everything you're saying, because it really does help me to talk to people about why this is such an important part of health. Meditation, and not just meditating for the time that you meditate and it just clears your mind and reduces stress, etc., which is also very, very important. But also meditating on these types of concepts, so you get yourself in a better spiritual state, right? I think that's your life's work.
I think the meditation is so important because it allows you to drop beyond the identification or the attachment to the physical body, and it starts loosening that grip, so that there's some space to see beyond yourself as just this body. And in that space, I think something opens up inside, that there's a whole nother level of freedom, for sure.
Right, absolutely.
Can I ask you guys, is there anything other than meditate? Because I feel like we're tapping into like some good shit here. Like, this is kind of the key of everything. Is there anything more than meditation, or what, for someone listening, what are the other, because I feel like the two of you guys are pretty enlightened. I feel like more enlightened than me. I want to get to that level. Like, number one's the realization. We're talking about meditation. What else can we do to get to that point or take these first couple of steps? Is there anything, or does it just start there?
I think we do, as I said, I think we have to deal with our conditioning, because I think so often our conditioning is what keeps us locked in our sense of survival identification. And so we have to be aware that we're conditioned and be willing to deal with our conditioning, process our pain, our hurt, our feelings, the suppressed stuff. I think that's really an important piece as well. Okay. One simple thing, as a practical thing, connected to that I'll say is, I think one of the things that actually keep us stuck are all the ways we lie to ourselves. Simple tool, little thing, but as a actionable thing, I see that all the ways we lie to ourselves, all the ways we BS ourselves, all the ways we don't tell the truth to ourselves, we're constantly lying to ourselves about what we feel and about what's our truth and about what we want. And so I think that really has a huge impact. Maybe someone listening and you're in a relationship and you're like, well, this is okay, it's I'm in love, and deep down we know this is absolutely not right for us, but we lie about it. Or maybe you're working a job that you hate, and it's not in alignment with your soul, but you're compromising just for the paycheck, and it's what it is, it's survival. And so there's so many ways we lie to ourselves. And so one of the first thing I would ask people to consider if they really want to begin transforming their life is, what lies are you telling yourself? And really sit with that, and what are you pretending to not know? Because I see many of us where we play a game of, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's right for me. I don't know. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know. I'm not sure. So we play this game of confusion. But I think deep down there is a part of us that really does know. There's a part of us that does have a sense of what's true and what's not, if we're willing to have the courage to feel and tune in and listen and become still and get in touch with it, And so what lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? And what are the lies I'm telling myself? What is it costing me? And to be willing to feel the pain of the lies we're telling ourselves. I think that's a key. Because many times we don't feel the pain. We're afraid, if I really tell myself the truth about what I'm feeling, then what's going to happen? Then maybe people won't love me. Then maybe I'm going to lose my job. Something's going to happen. So we're afraid of the consequences. And so we perpetuate the lies. I think it's hard to truly live an authentic, fulfilled, happy, energized life if you're living a lie. It's hard to live a truly vibrant, vital, happy, energized life. I don't care how much green juice you drink, if you're not living your truth, if you're not being who you really are. And so I think we have to be willing to have the courage to start telling the truth to ourselves, to start feeling, even if we're not willing to act on it, to start feeling the truth.
Yeah, and I think courage is the key to that. I mean, it really does take courage to do that true self-evaluation and then decide to take those steps and do the work.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What's your I'd love to hear a little bit about your platform currently. I mean, your book that you wrote has done incredibly well. It's an amazing book. Everyone should read it. Yeah. I mean, your story is just so incredible and inspiring, and what you do for people is amazing. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about, what you're doing these days? You're speaking, you do seminars, and what does the future look like for you?
Yeah, I was very excited about my first book, which became a national bestseller. I'm actually just signed a deal for a second book.
Oh, congratulations. Great.
A big deal with Penguin Random House. So that will be coming out in about a year.
Excellent. So and by the way, I read the book on Audible, and I love that you narrate it. I mean, you just bring so much to that, to the experience. That's incredible. So if someone's not a reader, definitely do the audiobook.
I recorded that in 2 days.
No way.
And they said, the publisher said, we need you for 5 days. I'm like, I don't have the time, 5 days. And I said, I can do it in 2 days. They said, you can't do it in 2 days. I said, you don't understand. I have the energy to do it in 2 days. Like, it's impossible. We did it in 2 days.
Wow.
So that was a lot of fun.
I normally listen to books on 1.25, but I listen to yours at 1. Too much to take in it.
Exactly. So I'm writing my second book, which I'm really excited about. More to be revealed soon. And, look, I do a lot of events and seminars. My real work is large events, small events, seminars all over the world. One of the favorite things I do is a retreat in Bali where I take 20 people. We dive deep, and I really take them through. It's called Boundless Bliss Bali, and I take 20 people through a deep experiential immersion seminar training without walls, where I create the space and I create the environment over 12 days and facilitate an unconditioning process that is really designed to help people feel into where their deepest blocks are, and create a process that is really designed to also systematically help you peel away the layers that prevent you from being your most authentic self. And so that's one of my favorite things. That's one of my deepest work. I do a 9-month coaching, training, apprenticeship program where over the course of 9 months, I wanted to create the most rigorous, transformational, deep dive facilitator, speaker, leadership, and coach training program on the planet. Because I looked out, I've been doing this a few years, and I looked out in the field and I saw people were getting certified to be coaches in 3 hours. People were getting certified to be coaches in 2 days. They were getting certified to be coaches on freaking YouTube. And I'm like, you're dealing with people's lives. I mean, I don't know how long it is to train to be a surgeon or a doctor, but it certainly isn't a weekend, And I will tell people, like, if a doctor has to train for like 11 years, 12 years, as coaches, we have to up the standard of our game, because you're not, a surgeon is dealing with people's bodies, but you're dealing with people's souls, which is different and equally as important, just different. So I wanted to create what I call the most rigorous, intensive coach training leadership program on the planet. It's hardcore, it's intense, that's over 9 months. So that's one of my favorite things to do. It's a very deep dive. And I do seminars all over the world, it's on my website. And so for me, my passion is to help people transform and help people connect with who they really are. Because I really think there's a lot of information out there that will help people try to get, how to get what you want. The challenge is, I found you might get what you want, only to realize it's not what you really wanted. Only to think, is this all? I got the thing I thought I wanted, but this is still not fulfilling. So you might get everything you thought you wanted based on who you thought you were, only to realize it's not what you really wanted if you weren't in touch with who you really are. So for me, the real foundation is, let's get you in touch with who you really are. Let's peel away the layers, get you in touch with who you really are, connect you to your authentic truth. From that place, we can then align and feel what your purpose really is, what you really want to do in life, what your soul is really here to do. And then align a plan and a system and a strategy to help you fulfill that. And so for me, I help people get get themselves, get who they are. And so that's my passion, and for me, it's not just a business. As a young boy, my father's a minister, and he had 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa. I left all of that behind. My first memories as a young boy was literally I remember being at age 8, seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the sand. My father walks on, wipes it on her face, and stands up. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear. And, he would look at a woman in a wheelchair. This wasn't on TV. With my own eyes, he'd look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Why are you in this wheelchair? Stand up. Do you believe? Stand up." And people thought I was crazy, but this was my reality. It was what I saw, And so we lived behind my father's church. And age 8, I started speaking in my father's church. Age 14, I was ordained as a minister, supposed to take over. This wasn't my plan for my life. And but when I was 11, I would literally, what a lot of people don't know is I would sneak into my father's church in the middle of the night. And the lights were off. And, my bedroom was about this big, tiny room, because we didn't have a lot of money. And I had these big dreams to inspire people. But the reality of my life was so small. And I would sneak into my father's church in the middle of the night. And I would, from about age 11 to age 18, for 2-3 hours a night, I would speak to the empty chairs and give seminars for 3-4 hours a night. Wow. Imagining myself in auditoriums and seminar rooms speaking and imagining people. And so for me, what I do is a calling. It's not a job. It's not a bit. It's what I have to do. It's what my soul was here to do. And I think everyone alive has something that they were put on this planet to do, that they were put on this planet to share and give. And I think the true fulfillment in life is not what you get, but is in service to humanity. The true fulfillment in life is when we are truly living in alignment with what our soul was put here to do. And when we are truly doing what we are here to do, then I think we actually tap into a whole nother level of energy because we are aligned. Then I think we tap into a whole nother level of energy beyond the physical body because we are in alignment with our soul. And I think our soul gives us energy. And so for me, that's my passion, is helping people break free and live their purpose in this lifetime.
Amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making the time to come do this with us. This has been incredible. Where can people find you?
Sure. A couple of ways. Online, I'm on Instagram and social media.
And what's your name online?
Kute Blackson.
Okay.
My website, kuteblackson.com. And if people want to go to any of my event in Bali, it's boundlessblissbali.com. And let me know you saw me on this podcast.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Kute.
Great to be here.
So incredible to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
It's a great conversation. Thank you.
Pleasure.